In life, there are some people that leave a irreplaceable mark on your heart. People who inspire you, educate you, and who you always feel, no matter how far they've gone, you always just feel them on your shoulder guiding your way. For some people, that's a friend, significant other, an aunt, an uncle, maybe a teacher. For some, even parents. For me, that person was my grandma. This is the one with my guardian angel. To say that this episode has been hard to articulate and put together and even plan out would be a severe understatement. My grandmother was honestly one of my best friends. And other than my mother, is probably one of the single most important people in my life. The day she died, a part of me died with her. A part of me that I don't think has ever been reborn. I've tried to tape myself back together. I've tried to make myself into someone that she would have been proud of. But sometimes I fear that she wouldn't be too proud of the person that I've become. And no, it's not because I'm gay or because I married a black person or because I have the fucking mouth of a sailor. It's because the one thing that she always enforced in my brain and in my heart was to be strong, to be independent, to never let anyone see you fall. Just seems like ever since she passed, all I've done is fall. But this episode isn't going to be full of tears and bad memories, but rather full of the good ones. The moments that I can remember like they were yesterday. And trust me, my memory's shit. I smoke a lot of weed. But if I'm honestly putting the memories in order that I can remember, the first real childhood memory that I have of my grandmother was actually at a time when her life was falling apart. The day her son died. I kind of remember when we got the phone call that he passed. I kind of remember when I learned that he had died. But I feel like on some level, the moment that I really remember was being at the cemetery the day of his funeral. And she was just collapsing and crying and in this inconsolable space that I had never seen her in. Because most of my childhood was filled with her laughing and smiling and being corny and just being this light in my life. And I was blessed, and my sisters were blessed, because we had the amazing privilege of not just having a grandmother that was such a pivotal part of our lives, but we got the opportunity to actually have her live with us from the time we were born until the day she left us. And I'm eternally grateful for that, because I honestly don't think that any of us would have become the women that we became if not for her and my mother being the strong force behind us. We always used to laugh and joke and say that we were like the Great Value version of Charmed. It was the three sisters and the mom and the grandmom and the deadbeat dad. And for a while that was us. You know, it was the five of us against the world. When my dad left, it was just the five of us, and we had to deal with a really traumatic time. And I personally don't think that we would have made it through that, me and my sisters, or even my mom, had we not had her strong force behind us, holding us all together. Sometimes I laugh and I joke and I think that she was the glue that kept the five of us together. 'Cause I feel like if she were still alive, my sisters and I wouldn't have the strained relationship that we have. My mom and I wouldn't be at odds all the time. I feel like if she was still alive, we'd all really still have that bond and that relationship. The one thing about my grandmother was she taught me how to be independent at a really early age and how to stand up for myself. I was a victim of some really traumatic bullying in middle school, and it's actually funny because the majority of my fucking audience are actually the bitches that used to bully me in elementary school. So hey y'all, I remember I wanted to leave school. I wanted to switch schools, and I wanted to transfer to somewhere else because I was just so miserable. I would come home every day and just cry in my room, and I just couldn't believe that, like, all of these people that I thought were my friends were just turning their backs on me. And I just wanted to quit. I just wanted to start over from scratch. I wanted to go somewhere else and start over and have nobody know me and have nobody know the stories about what these girls were saying about me. And I remember my mom and her sat me down and they told me that if I ran away from the school and transferred out, I would be running every day for the rest of my life away from anything that made me struggle or that held me back. And I still carry that lesson with me even now, being a mother and having a child who struggles with bullying now in third grade, to be able to tell him that same thing that my grandmother instilled in me, that, you know, don't run away from the bullying. Don't run away from the hurt and the pain and the frustration and the anger, because if you keep doing that, you're always going to be running and you'll never learn how to stand up for yourself. And I really am grateful, because I really think if I would have transferred schools in 6th grade like I wanted to, I probably would still be running away from conflict. And I wouldn't know how to be the person that I am now, who's not really afraid of confrontation, who's not afraid of going toe to toe with somebody, because she kind of put that in my heart that, you know, stand up for yourself and don't let anyone ever make you feel like you can't be where you want to be. My grandma was such a thug. I remember I was in fifth or 6th grade. Oh my God, I cannot remember. I remember I wrote a poem for an English assignment, and it was kind of reminiscent of a poem that was written on the back of my godfather's funeral card, like his mass card. And I kind of took some of like the structure of that poem and repurposed it to be, you know, something else. And I remember my teacher tried to accuse me of plagiarism. And this was back in like the early 2000s, when everyone still had a fucking house phone. The bitches were walking around with the pink razors and shit. I remember I had a blue Sidekick phone. God, fucking throwback. But I remember I came home from school and I was so upset because I never failed. Even if I was getting bullied and I hated like the actual socialization that school had to offer, I was a great student. I was just A pluses all the time. I loved to read. I loved to write. I had like a great passion for it. And I remember I came home and I was just so upset because I said I failed. Like, she gave me an F and said that I like plagiarized. And I remember my grandma got on the phone and she called my teacher on her home number. And I remember they literally had a screaming match with each other over the phone. And the ironic part was this bitch lived with her mother. So when my grandma was yelling at her on the phone, her mom got on the other line and was like yelling at my grandma and say, oh, how dare you, and blah, blah, blah. But that bitch let me have a redo assignment and I passed that bitch. My grandma also was really big in my desire to be an actor and a performer and want to be on Broadway or be in the movies. Because on the weekends when I was in middle school, while most kids were out with their friends and at keggers in people's basements and shit and going back the track and smoking Newports and drinking Four Lokos and fucking Miller Lights, I was at home watching old MGM musicals with my grandma and listening to old records. And I remember I watched Hello Dolly with Barbra Streisand with her, and everything from the set to the music to the costumes to everything about it made me fall in love with theater. It made me fall in love with musicals. And I looked at the TV and I said, I want to do that. And I think I was like 4th grade, 5th grade, around that age. And a couple weeks later, my mom had signed me up for community theater because I really wanted to, I had a passion and a drive for it. It was something I really wanted to do, and I didn't care how hard it was going to be or what it was going to be like. I just knew that I wanted to do that. I wanted to mirror and mimic what I saw Barbra Streisand do in that movie. And even though it didn't really help my street cred with getting my ass beat in school or having girls write horrible shit about me on MySpace and girls passing notes around the classroom about me and people calling me names, it really didn't help my street cred at all. And looking back on it now, I'm like, why the fuck did I want to do that? Why did I want to go to a community theater where these same girls that were literally giving me swirlies in the bathroom and jumping me in the schoolyard and calling me a fat bitch and shit on MySpace, why would I then go to a community theater where all of these girls, their parents would go, their grandparents would go, they would take them to see the shows? Why did I set myself up like that? But I will say, outside of the community theater where I went to being a complete and utter travesty as far as health-wise, my grandmother had really bad breathing problems. I remember, I think she had COPD or something like that. And I remember the community theater I went to, it was basically like a museum, low-key on the inside, and it was dusty, and it was just really old-school vaudeville type theater. My grandma, even though she could barely fucking breathe when she walked in there, she always came to every show. When I did musicals in elementary school and middle school, she came to every show. And it wasn't until I got to high school and she got a little bit more sicker where she couldn't come to the shows that I was doing. I just remember she was always in the audience. And it was really great for me to have that support from her because, it was because of her and the movies that she introduced me to and the actors and the music that she introduced me to that made me fall in love with acting in the first place. And I feel like if I didn't have that connection with her, that hobby that we shared, I don't think I would have majored in theater in high school and college. I probably would have did something else but she actually introduced me to my safe place. Ironically enough, theater is a safe haven for a lot of kids that don't really fit in anywhere else, and it became my safe place. I would go to classes on the weekends, and I would become a different person for a couple hours on stage, and I would get to be these confident, boisterous characters that weren't afraid of anything. Even though on the inside and in real life, I was this scared little girl that read Jackie Collins novels in the schoolyard because she didn't have anyone to play with, or who wrote short stories about characters and about life that I always wanted to live because I couldn't live it in real life. The one thing I will say about my grandmother is sometimes I wish I had her strength. Sometimes I wish I had her fearlessness. She was a woman who, despite being abused for years in an abusive marriage, and despite having all the odds stacked against her as a young single mother raising 3 kids, she never shied away from being herself. You know, people made fun of her for how she dressed and how she wore her hair because she wanted to be as cool as all the Hollywood actors. And sometimes I'm almost jealous that I never inherited her fearlessness the way my little sister did. Sometimes I wish I would have inherited her selflessness the way my twin sister did. It's crazy. I sit here and sometimes I like to believe that me and her had this amazing bond, and we did. It was crazy. Like, she was more than just a grandparent to me. She was my best friend, and she was this pivotal part of my upbringing. And I was blessed that every morning I got to wake up and come downstairs and she was right there in the living room in her recliner with her Marlboros and her bowl of Wheaties watching daytime TV. But sometimes I wish that I would have gotten more from her. You know, she helped me come into my own. She helped me have this confidence that I didn't know that I ever had inside of me. When I got to high school, I blossomed. I became a different person, and it was because of her pushing me to be that person. She knew that I was more outgoing than my twin. She knew that I had a big mouth from a very early age. I was always fucking louder than everybody else. And when I went to high school and I made all these friends and I would come home every day and would just be so happy and so full of life, I knew she was happy for me, and I could see it because she could see the change from this sad little minuscule girl who graduated 8th grade hating herself, who ate her feelings and gained about 130 pounds before going into high school because she was just so bored. I was so unhappy and I hated myself. And so I made myself into something I hated even more, which was fat. And then by the time I got into high school and I started making friends and I had a life and I was happy, I started to lose that weight and become a happy, healthier version of myself. In the summer before my junior year, my life kind of shifted. I had found out that my dad was having an affair. And I remember this like it was yesterday. My grandmom's best friend was staying with us for a little while. She needed a place to stay. She was spending some time with us. And we were all hanging out, being stupid in the living room, watching TV, being goofy, laughing, making jokes. And it had to be late at night because my dad was getting ready to go to work. My dad got up between like 11 and 12 o'clock at night and got ready to go to work. And I remember we were all joking about how my dad was distant and being weird and goofy. And my grandmom had said, you know, well, what if he's like, what if he's having an affair? And what if he's this? And we all laughed and joked because everyone joked that my mom and dad were going to be together forever. They never thought in a million years that my dad would do something like that. So because I was too grown for my own good and thought that I knew what the fuck I was doing, I army crawled across my parents' bedroom floor and stole my dad's phone. I knew his password. And I logged into his phone and I found messages that he had with another woman. I remember I came downstairs and I looked at my grandmother and she looked at me and she knew that I knew that something was wrong. And that night everything changed. The next morning, me and my mom packed all my dad's shit in trash bags and left it on the porch so when he came home from work, she would approach him about it. And I remember my grandmom had always had like this strong voice and she always put her 2 cents in even when nobody wanted it. But that day she was quiet. She didn't say anything when my dad walked out the door. She didn't say anything to him at all. She just gave him a look. And if looks could kill, my fucking dad would have died on that porch that day because my grandmother gave him that look. And I remember when he walked out the door and shut the door, she looked at me and she said, and that is why you never give the whole of yourself to anybody. Because the same way that your mother gave herself to him over 25 years to that man, he just threw it all away for nothing. That time when he left and, you know, I was a junior in high school, I was getting ready for prom and, you know, graduation, and everything was like so great. And my home life fell apart. And I remember things really got bad. You know, bills couldn't get paid. My mom didn't work. My grandmom got a social security check and stuff, but like we didn't have any money. We were getting shut off notices and stuff was falling apart. And I just remember my grandmom took on this support role in a way, and she kind of saved all of us for a while. You know, we were able to go to prom and graduate and start college. And it was like, she was that support. She was the thing that kept all of us together during that time. And I honestly think she saved my mom, because I don't think my mom would have survived that had she not been there. Then, as you guys know from other episodes that I've posted, my freshman year of college, I came home from school and came out to my family and said that I was gay. My coming out process was probably the most terrifying thing in the world, because I was more nervous about coming out to my grandmother than my mom, only because I knew my mom would love me and support me no matter what. I never had a fear of that in the world. I never had a question in my mind that my mother would respect and love me, whether I was gay or straight. But my grandmother was the one I was the most afraid to tell, because I thought, even though, you know, she was really open-minded and really down to earth and lived a life that was so insanely amazing, that she was still an Irish Catholic at heart. And I was afraid that she wouldn't accept me, that she wouldn't love me anymore. And when I sat her down and I told her, she wasn't mad, she wasn't sad, she wasn't disappointed, but she said something that I'll never forget. She told me that you're going to have to defend your choice for the rest of your life. You're going to have to defend the fact that you're being yourself. And she said, this is when all that strength and all of that confidence that I've instilled in you since you were a little girl, I need you to put it up. I need you to do it. I need you to be that. And she really gave that to me in a way that I kind of had this confidence and this cockiness of myself from that point on. For about 10 years, I had this inevitable, like, fuck you to the world. Like, I was going to be me no matter what, because the person who I was the most afraid to tell I was gay, I told, and she accepted me anyway. After I came home from college, things kind of went downhill health-wise for my grandma. She started to get really sick and was kind of deteriorating health-wise. And for the next 3 years after I came home, we knew things were going to be harder. You know, I had started working, my sister had started working. We were kind of providing and, you know, stuff for my mom and her so that, you know, they could focus on her health and not so much on trying to keep the lights on. And I remember she had gotten really bad pneumonia and she was in the hospital. And they said, we're going to put her in a nursing home for a couple of weeks for rehabilitation, because with her other health problems and stuff, osteoporosis, COPD, stuff like that, she was going to really need to learn how to walk again and go through all this physical therapy and everything else. And although we didn't really have a great, we weren't great fans of nursing homes, we put her in the nursing home that my aunt worked at for a really long time, and we thought that things were going to be okay. The day she was supposed to come home from the nursing home, I went up there to go meet her so we could all come home together. And I got up to the nursing home and she was on the floor. She had fallen. And I remember I freaked out. And I was like yelling for the nurse, and I was saying how long she's been on the floor, and I was spazzing, and I called my mom, and they all rushed up there, and she looked at her and said, I want to go home. Like, I want to go home. I don't want to stay here, even though they said, oh, well, with her having, you know, a fractured wrist because of the fall, she needed to stay there. And she said, fuck this, I want to go home. It was like from the time she came home from the nursing home, it was just a waiting game. Put a hospital bed in the living room, and the nurses would come during the day, and they would, you know, give her medicine. And like, I was at work, and my mom would be there with the nurses and stuff during the day because me and my sisters work. And at night, I would be there, and I would stay up with her, and I'd sleep in the living room with her, and we'd stay up and we'd watch movies and we'd talk. And it just got really bad. And I knew she was going to go. I knew it was only a matter of time. Then September 16th, I was getting ready to go to work. It was about 3:00 in the afternoon. And I was in the living room, and I was talking to her, and everything was okay. And then I realized that she wasn't talking anymore. And she had looked up the staircase. My mom was in the backyard smoking a cigarette with my cousin and my grandma's best friend, and my sisters were both at work. No, my little sister was at school, and my twin sister was at work. And I realized that she had gone. She had passed. And I think I was in denial or shock. For a little while, it was crazy. I didn't want to say it out loud because I knew if I said it, it would be true. So I held it together, and I walked out into the kitchen, and I told my aunt, can you go in the living room? I think she's gone. My aunt was a nurse, and so I knew that, like, she'd be able to tell. She worked in a nursing home, so I figured, you know, she'd be able to tell better than anyone else if she was gone. And she was gone. And I remember I just kept saying to myself over and over again, don't cry. Don't cry. You don't have a place to cry. You need to let your mom cry. Your mom just lost her mom. Like, you can't cry. You can't be the one to cry. Because if you cry and your sisters come home, they're going to know something's wrong. And I remember my aunt got in the car, and she told me to drive down with her to meet my sister coming home from work and my little sister getting off the bus from school. And so we did that. And the second that my sister saw me, she knew. Call it twin telepathy. Call it what have you. But we all went home. I'd called out of work. Obviously, I wasn't fucking going to work. And the funeral home people came, and they took her away. And I remembered I still didn't cry. I didn't want to cry because I just kept saying it over and over again, like, you're the oldest. You know, your mom needs you to be strong. You have to be the one to hold it together. I remember it was like the longest week of my life. It was the funeral service. We knew it was coming. We knew we had to prepare for it. We were getting pictures together, making collages, figuring out who was going to read at the service, who was going to do the eulogy. And I remember my mom said she wanted me to do it. And I literally was like cursing, like, in my head, like, why the fuck do I have to do it? But then I figured, you know, we did have a close relationship, and I was, you know, helping take care of her and stuff at night. And I did spend a lot of her last days with her. And I think my mom knew that, like, we had a different type of relationship than the one that she had with my other sisters. Not to say that it wasn't just as important or valid, but it was different. It was a different connection. And I think my mom saw a lot of my grandma in me. So she asked me to write a eulogy. And it took me like hours. I I couldn't put it into words. I couldn't figure out what to say. And I remember I tried to keep it together while I was reading it at the service, and I just said, don't cry while you're up there, don't cry while you're up there, don't cry while you're up there. And I was fine until I hit the final line. My grandma had this expression she would say to me and my sisters before we went to bed every night. We would line up, oldest to youngest, like we were the fucking Von Trapps. And every night we would lean down and kiss her, and she would say, Grandma loves you. God loves you. Guardian angel, protect and keep you safe. And we'd bless ourselves and go to bed. And that was every night from the time we were little kids until, God, I think we did that till probably high school. And I said that at the end of my eulogy, and I just broke down. And to this day, I don't think I fully cried in that capacity at that level ever again. And sometimes I wonder now as an adult, I've been married, I have a family, and I've made some questionable decisions along the way. But sometimes I wonder if she would have been proud of me. If she would be proud of the woman I turned into. You know, and even though I stopped acting and I stopped performing and I kind of lost my passion for writing along the way too, sometimes I wonder if she lost faith in me. Like if she was still around, would she still have that confidence in me? The kind of confidence where she fought for me so hard when I was a kid. And sometimes I just have to think to myself that maybe even though I haven't been as strong in the last couple of years as I would have liked to be, as you guys have learned from listening to these episodes every week, I've been through a lot the last 4 years. And I've tried to build my life up in a way that I feel like she would be proud of me for. But I know on some level, she watches over me all the time because I still feel it. I still feel that love, that connection, that light over me. And she kind of keeps me going because there's been a lot of times over the last 3 years where I've honestly considered just giving up. And then I remember that I have a guardian angel watching over me every day who always had faith in me and who thought I could do anything. And it's crazy because I wish that her and my mom could have walked me down the aisle. That she could have seen me graduate college. That she could have watched me really build my life up to something that I could be proud of, you know, starting my career, the career I've always wanted, getting married, starting a family. But I know at the end of the day, she's with me every day. But I'm honestly really grateful that I had her in my life and that I got to share the first 21 years of my life with her. And that I had her guide me and help mold me into the woman that I am today. And I'm so grateful that you guys have supported me in telling stories like this on a platform where I'm comfortable enough to share the feelings that I have and that I still have. And even though she's been gone now for, God, 7 years, it doesn't get any easier. And I honestly don't think it ever will.
Welcome back, guys. I understand it's been quite a while since I've shared any content with you guys. It's actually been, almost 7 months since I've shared an episode with you guys, and I just wanted to take the time to apologize for not updating as frequently as I would have liked. And I hope that I haven't lost a lot of loyal followers. I can see that I didn't from the messages and the support and stuff that I've been getting online. But I wanted to jump on here real quick and just give you guys a life update and let you guys know what upcoming stuff I'm working on for the series. I went through a really rough couple of months, both emotionally, mentally. It's just been a lot. And the thing that made me want to get into this series, and the thing that made me post content, and the thing that made me get into this as a hobby, was because I wanted to share my story with you guys. Things that I've done, things that I wish I did differently. And I felt, because some of you had reached out to me saying how much listening to certain things has helped you with, whether it was eating disorders or sexual assault or friends and family or sexual orientation, you guys have shared with me how much certain things have helped you. And that was actually my goal with this. It wasn't so much to entertain and for laughs or for views. It really was to impact people that I thought could relate to the things I've gone through. And I feel like I haven't really been confident enough or had to get up and go to work on any new content for you guys. So I do apologize for the very long sabbatical that I took from the series. And I hope that you guys will stay tuned, because I do have really good stuff coming up for the second half of this season that I was working on. Some stuff is going to be rearranged because I just had a whole new idea for how I wanted this series to go. Originally it was for me to share, my sexual exploits in my early 20s, my coming out story, my struggles with my body image, eating disorders, my struggles with my family, my friends, my relationship. And while some of those things have been really helpful, not only just for you guys that have listened and shared that you guys can relate to them, but also it also helped me to kind of deal with them. And I thought, since I've had a couple really big life changes recently, I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 and 2 back in October. And it took a toll on me and my relationship and my family and my friends. And it was part of the reason why I stayed silent for so long and didn't post any content, mostly because I was trying to come to terms with what my new life was going to be as far as therapy and medication and how it was impacting my relationship and my friendships and my family and things. And I just needed a break, a mental breather. It's kind of hard to get on here and tell funny stories about, women that I hooked up with in bar bathrooms and, give insightful content about my relationship with my siblings, when basically over the course of the last several months, I've been more down and more out of touch with everyone in my life than I would care to admit. It just didn't seem right to put on a facade or a mask for you guys who have been so faithful to the series, that have listened to it from the beginning, who send feedback, who send messages, who share this, who have shared it with your friends, your family, your significant others. It wasn't fair of me to be fake with you guys, because I've been more open on this platform, I think, than I have been anywhere else other than therapy. And I just wanted the opportunity for you guys to know that the next half of this season is going to be a little more lighthearted. We have covered some heavy stuff before my little break. It was like a lot of heavy stuff. It was, the loss of my grandmother, which was one of the most important people in my life. It was my relationship with my dad, which is always a sore subject for me. I talked about my ex reaching out to me to try to, be friends again, or to rekindle some type of relationship, and how that really mentally fucked with me a little bit. But there's going to be a little bit more lightheartedness to the second half of the series, as well as some really important content that I want to share with you guys. I wanted to kind of bring it back to where we were in season 1 with, fun, lighthearted stuff. But I also know that some of you guys really have asked for me to bare my soul and share things like, my marriage, my friendships, and things like that. And as many of you know, my wife has a podcast series as well. And what I want to do is respect her privacy as well as the privacy of our relationship, and not delve in so much into the more intricate parts of our relationship, just out of respect for her and respect for our relationship. But I will do a deep dive into our sexual relationship if that will appease the people that have been asking for a video about her. Certain people in my life that have reappeared after several years of us not speaking, I'll dive into those relationships and those friendships. Me going on the 2024 apology tour to everyone who I have affected and hurt over the last couple of years, and how I'm trying to, rebuild friendships and relationships with people, how I'm trying to really zero in on being a more present spouse, a more present parent, a more present person in general, and how I would like to kind of start putting myself first in a lot of ways, because I wasn't always doing that before. But I did think that you guys deserved an update from me, just to, make sure I wasn't dead, or make sure that all of the haters and all the naysayers that were harassing me about my series didn't scare me away. They didn't. Earlier in previous seasons, I was getting a lot of really negative feedback from people who I was talking about in certain episodes. And I was kind of nervous about, continuing the series at a time. I was worried that if I said the wrong thing, or if I, told my truth and that didn't match up to someone else's version of what their truth was at the time, that it would negatively impact the series. But I realized this was never for anyone but me. And it was for you guys that have been so great about, sharing your own experiences with me and asking me to collab with you, asking me to share things about myself that I really wasn't prepared to tell anybody. So with all that being said, I'm going on a ramble, but I just want you guys to know that more content is coming. I really am going to do a whole revamp of this series. I'm branching out to other mediums. I have the podcast up on Amazon, on Apple, on Spotify, I'm trying to get it linked with YouTube. That might take a little while. I have a couple of people that have asked me to do collabs and work with them on TikTok podcast series, and I'm debating doing that. But overall, I'm branching out. I'm trying to get the content out there to other people. I'm trying to reach different audiences, but none of that could have been possible without you guys that have been sticking with the series since the first episode back in 2020. The people that have been listening weekly and monthly, and people that were new to the series that went all the way back and watched it again. I'm just really appreciative. And I felt like, even though I was going through a really dark time recently, I feel like what a better way to come out of that darkness than to be a sense of light to other people. And if you guys relate to the things that I say, if you guys feel like you can in any way relate to the situations I've been in, if I've been of any help to anyone, I want to be able to keep doing that. So next, there will be an episode uploaded on Monday. Today is Saturday. An episode will be uploaded on Monday, which will be my first back reintegration into the series here. And that will be a more lighthearted episode. It's going to be one that I've been debating, a story I've been debating telling for years on any platform, anywhere. I was even scared to tell my psychiatrist. But this is one that I'm really excited for. And it was kind of delves into one of my early 20s escapades. A story I've never told anyone. So just be prepared. Monday at 9 p.m. The episode will be available on all platforms. And I just hope that those of you that have been loyal and have been listening to this series from the beginning, that you continue to support, continue to listen, continue to share, and continue to be touched in any way by my story. So thank you guys so, so much. And tune into The One With on Monday nights at 9 p.m., which will be the new uploaded day and time. It will be now Monday nights at 9 for all new content, all new look,
and an all new energy being brought into this 2024 season. Peace.